right, so today we're going to do a deep dive on how to prepare for a director of photography job interview. This industry is super competitive, so really nailing those answers is going to be key to setting yourself apart. And luckily, we've got RoleCatcher's Director of Photography, the complete career interview guide to help us out.
Yeah, and it's not just about like knowing the right answers. It's about, how you think,
Mhm.
how you approach challenges, and how you actually turn your vision into something real. They want to know you're not just a camera operator, but a visual storyteller.
Okay, so let's just jump right in. One of the questions they ask is, what led you to pursue a career in cinematography? And I feel like this is one that kind of trips people up because it seems so simple on the surface.
Yeah, it seems really basic, but it's actually your chance to show your passion.
Yeah.
Think about those key moments that got you here, like maybe a film that really influenced you early on, or a photographer whose work blew you away. It's about more than just saying, oh, I like movies. It's about that deep drive to capture emotion and light and story through the lens.
So it's more about like a personal story then, almost like your origin story as a visual artist.
Yeah, exactly. Don't be afraid to get specific, too.
Yeah.
Was there a project in film school that made you realize this is what you wanted to do? Or maybe a mentor who opened your eyes to visual storytelling? These are the details that'll make you stand out.
That makes a lot of sense. And speaking of standing out, RoleCatcher has that AI tool that can help you refine your answers.
Mm.
So how would it approach this specific question?
So RoleCatcher's AI is kind of like having an interview expert right there with you. It looks at your response and sees, is it clear? Is it concise? Does it actually relate to the job description? For this question specifically, it might suggest weaving in some of your skills or experiences that really fit the role, making sure you're hitting all the right points.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. It's like having a coach in your corner. All right, so let's move on to a question that's all about teamwork. How do you approach collaborating with a director to achieve their vision? This one seems tricky to me because it's got to be a balance between bringing your own creative ideas
Mm-hmm.
while also, staying true to what the director wants.
Oh, yeah, it's a real balancing act. And that's exactly what they're looking for in your answer. They want to see that you can navigate that creative partnership. I think of it as less their vision and more like a shared vision, one that you're helping to shape through your knowledge of lighting and composition.
So it's about showing that you can collaborate, but also that you're a creative force in your own right.
Exactly. You're not just taking orders, you're bringing your expertise to the table to help bring the director's ideas to life. And that takes clear communication, listening to each other, and being willing to work together to find creative solutions.
So what are some good examples that would really show off that collaborative spirit?
Well, think about a time where you and a director had different ideas on how to approach a scene. How did you communicate your perspective? Were you able to find a compromise that worked for both of you? Something that served the story and the overall vision. Using real examples from your work really shows that you can handle the creative back and forth of filmmaking.
Okay, that's really helpful. Now, this next question gets into the technical side of things. What is your process for selecting equipment for a shoot? This one seems straightforward, but I bet there's a lot to unpack there.
Oh, there definitely is. They don't just want to hear a list of your favorite cameras. It's about, your thought process. Showing that you understand how budget limits the needs of the script and even the location all play a role in your decisions. They want to see you can pick the right tools for the job strategically.
So it's like being the detective,
Yeah.
right? You're looking at all the pieces of the project and then putting together the perfect equipment kit.
Yeah, that's a great way to think about it. Think about a project you worked on where you had a tight budget. How'd you prioritize what was important? Were you able to get creative and find workarounds to still achieve the look you wanted?
And that makes me wonder if RoleCatcher's AI could help us frame this answer to really highlight those problem-solving skills.
It definitely could. It might suggest, really emphasizing those times where you had to be adaptable or resourceful. It's all about presenting that technical side of you in a way that shows you can think critically and find solutions even when there are limitations.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it can be a really useful tool.
Okay, I think that's a good place to wrap up for today. In part 2, we'll continue talking through some of these questions from RoleCatcher's guide, so stay tuned for that.
Looking forward to it. And it's not just about, listing the gear. It's about explaining why you made those choices. Like, did you choose a certain lens to get a shallow depth of field, to give it that, dreamy cinematic look? Or maybe you had to work with limited lighting, so you got creative with natural light sources. These details show you understand how the equipment affects the final product, how it impacts the visual storytelling.
Yeah, it's all connected.
Okay, so moving on to another question that pops up a lot. How do you approach lighting a scene? This feels like where the real artistry comes in.
Oh, for sure. Lighting sets the mood, the atmosphere, the whole feel of the scene. It's like sculpting with light and shadow. Are you going for that dramatic look with lots of contrast and deep shadows? Or do you want something softer, more natural? Every choice you make as a DP contributes to the emotions in the film.
Yeah, it really does. It's almost like you're a painter using light as your brushstrokes. That's a great way to put it. And it's not just about knowing the techniques. You have to understand how light works in different environments. On location with natural light versus a studio where you have more control, each one calls for a different approach and a deep understanding of how to manipulate the light to get the effect you want.
So it's not just about setting up some lights. They want someone who can use light to tell the story.
Exactly. Think back to a project where you had to create a certain mood with lighting, like maybe a tense interrogation scene with those harsh, direct beams, or a romantic scene lit with soft, diffused light. Describe the choices you made and explain why you made them. Did you use a particular color temperature to evoke a specific feeling? Or maybe some unusual lighting techniques to get a unique look?
Okay, so really show off your creative thinking there. I'm sure RoleCatcher's AI would have some good suggestions for this one too.
Oh, definitely. It can analyze your answer and see if it's clear, concise, and relevant. It might even suggest throwing in some industry terms or, highlighting certain skills that the employer's looking for. It's like having a second set of eyes to make sure your response is polished and hits all the right notes.
I love that. All right, let's switch gears a bit and talk about post-production. One question they ask is, can you walk me through your experience with color grading? This feels like the final touch that can really elevate the visuals.
It is. Color grading is where you refine the look and feel of the film. You create that cohesive visual style and enhance the mood and emotion of each scene. You're taking those raw images from the camera and shaping them into the finished product.
So it's not just about making the colors look pretty, it's using color in a deliberate way to add to the storytelling.
Exactly. Think about the overall tone of the film. Is it a dark, gritty thriller? Or like a lighthearted, whimsical comedy? Your color choices should reflect that. Do you want warm, desaturated tones for a nostalgic feel? Or maybe cool bluish hues to create a sense of unease? Every decision you make in the color grading suite is contributing to the visual narrative.
And this reminds me of something I read in RoleCatcher's Career Guide. They really stress that a DP's role goes beyond just the shoot itself. It's about overseeing the whole visual journey of the film right through post-production.
That's a really good point. A good DP understands that their work isn't done when the cameras stop rolling. They're involved every step of the way, working with the editor and the colorist to make sure their vision makes it to the final cut.
Okay, so back to the interview question. What kind of specific examples should we be using when talking about color grading?
Well, think about projects where you used color in a really impactful way. Did you create distinct visual styles for different characters or settings? Did you use color to foreshadow events or to make emotional moments even stronger?
Like, say you wanted to show a character's descent into despair. Could you use color to symbolize that?
Exactly. Maybe you start with warm, vibrant colors and then gradually shift to colder, more desaturated tones as the character's emotional state deteriorates. That kind of thing shows that you get the nuances of color and how to use it to tell the story in a subtle but powerful way.
I'm picturing how I'd use RoleCatcher's AI to help me perfect this answer.
It's a great tool for that. Think of it as your personal interview assistant, helping you tailor your responses to the specific job and highlight your skills so they really resonate with those potential employers.
Perfect. Okay, let's move on to another common question. What is your experience with different camera systems and formats? This seems pretty straightforward, but I'm guessing there's more to it than just listing off a bunch of camera names.
Yeah, you got it. It's not about how many cameras you've used. It's about showing you understand how different systems and formats fit with different creative goals.
So it's more than just knowing the technical stuff. It's about picking the right tool for the job.
Exactly. And being able to explain why you chose that particular tool. Think about projects where you had to decide between film and digital, or between different sensor sizes and aspect ratios. What were the creative reasons behind those decisions? Did you go with a large format camera to capture the scale of a landscape? Or maybe a handheld camera to get that up-close and personal feel?
So it's about showing you can think strategically, about how the technology affects the visual storytelling.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get a little technical here. Talk about the pros and cons of each camera system you've used. Did you have to shoot in low light and need a camera that excels in those conditions? Or maybe you needed a high dynamic range to capture a scene with extreme contrast. Those details show that you really understand how the tech impacts the look of the film.
Wow, this is making me realize that preparing for this interview is about way more than just memorizing answers. It's about looking back at your past work, analyzing the choices you made.
And understanding the why behind those decisions. That's really what they're looking for. And remember, RoleCatcher's resources can be a huge help. The career guide and the AI feedback tool. They can give you a deeper understanding of what's happening in the industry and help you fine-tune your answers to make sure you're presenting yourself in the best possible way.
It really is. And, RoleCatcher can really help with that too.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so let's dive into another question that I think really gets to the heart of being a DP. How do you approach working with a director to develop a visual language for a project? This seems like a true partnership where you're both bringing your own ideas to the table.
Yeah, it is a true partnership. You can think of it like a creative conversation. You're both trying to find the best way to visually tell that story. The director might have a certain mood or feeling in mind, and your job is to turn that into a visual style.
So it's like finding a shared language then.
Exactly, a language that speaks to the core of the story. And to do that, you need clear communication. You got to really listen to each other and be open to compromise. The director might come to you with a reference image or like a scene from another film, and you have to be able to understand what they're going for and offer your own suggestions.
And that's where all your knowledge comes in, right?
Yeah.
Your knowledge of film history, different techniques, visual storytelling.
Exactly. You might suggest a certain lighting style or camera movement or even a specific lens. It's about using your expertise to create a visual world that supports the narrative, a world that makes the story even more powerful.
Okay, now this next question shifts gears a bit.
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach working with actors to capture their performance on camera? It seems like this needs a whole other set of skills.
You're right. Working with actors takes empathy and sensitivity. You need to understand how to create a space where they feel comfortable and supported, so they can do their best work.
It's not just about the technical stuff anymore. It's about those subtle emotional moments.
It is. You might have to adjust your camera angle or the lighting to fit the actor's movements or their style. Sometimes you need to give them a little encouragement to build that trust and collaboration on set.
That reminds me of something I read in RoleCatcher's Career Guide. They talked about how important those soft skills are for a DP, like communication and collaboration.
They're absolutely essential because a DP isn't just a technician. They're a leader, a collaborator. They have to know how to work with all kinds of people.
Okay, one last question for today.
Mm-hmm.
How do you approach creating and maintaining a consistent visual style throughout a project? That seems pretty important for a DP.
It is. Consistency is key when it comes to visual storytelling. You want to create a world that pulls the audience in, a world that makes every scene more impactful.
So it's not just about each shot looking good on its own.
Nope. It's about all the visual elements working together to support the story.
So we're talking color palette, lighting, camera movement, composition.
And it all contributes to the visual language of the film.
Can you give us some examples of how to do that?
Sure, think about a film with a really strong visual style, like a film noir with that high contrast lighting and deep shadows.
Or a Wes Anderson film.
Exactly, with those symmetrical shots and bold colors.
Or even a sci-fi film with futuristic sets and cool lighting effects.
All of those films have a consistent visual language that reinforces the story and the emotions, and that's what you want to achieve as a DP.
This has been such a great deep dive. I feel like I have a much better understanding of what it takes to nail that DP interview.
Me too.
It's all about showcasing your knowledge and passion, and your ability to collaborate and communicate effectively.
Exactly.
And don't forget about RoleCatcher. It's such a valuable resource for anyone working in film and television.
It really is.
That AI feedback tool can make a huge difference in how you present yourself.
It can.
So to all you aspiring DPs out there, we hope this deep dive has given you the confidence and the insights you need. Go out there and ace those interviews. You got this.